Hello team players, and welcome to my first Monster Core video. It's time to talk about Adamantine Dragons. Let's dive in. So, there are three things that I want to do in these videos. The first is go over the special abilities that the monster has. The second thing is give some tips for GMs as to running these monsters. And the third thing is, I want to give players some ideas on how they could fight these monsters. On that last one, please note that just because you know how to fight these monsters doesn't mean your character does. That's one of the reasons why recall knowledge is so important. But please, GMs have enough trouble giving you a challenge without you metagaming. So please don't use the information in this video for that purpose. So let's go over the description of Adamantine Dragons. The powerful Adamantine Dragons are one of several dragons known as Sky Metal Dragons. The innate magic that flows through these dragons causes these particular metals to draw toward them like magnets, or in some cases, naturally grow these metals on their bodies. Adamantine Dragons begin their lives with tough scales that are naturally replaced with thicker and even tougher adamantine plating as they grow older. Adamantine dragons are typically very steadfast and loyal, and once they've committed to a purpose, changing their minds is almost impossible. When I read that description, and I read the abilities of the Adamantine Dragon, which I'll get to in a second, I see them as wanting to just barrel into combat. Once they decide to attack you, that's it. They're gonna attack to the death. But these dragons can also make great allies, as once they've committed themselves to a cause, they're not changing their mind. But their intelligence modifier suggests that they aren't just going to barrel into a situation where they're at a disadvantage. Maybe the young version of this dragon would, but most definitely not the adult or the ancient version. Their intelligence is much too high for that. Please note that these are primal dragons, which means while they aren't directly bound to nature, they are likely to act as keepers of their habitats. These dragons are also generally larger than other dragons. They also fall back on their instincts more often. But as I said before, that doesn't mean they're dumb. It simply means that if they don't need to use their brain, they're gonna follow their instincts. Adamantine Dragons have a ton of special abilities, so let's just get into it. First off, Adamantine Dragons are immune to paralysis, petrification, and sleep. Secondly, they have resistance 10 to all physical damage except adamantine. And finally, while reflex is their lowest save, they do get a +2 bonus on all saving throws against primal effects. So primal casters will have a hard time against this dragon. And of course, they have the standard frightful presence that all dragons have. Another ability that Adamantine Dragons have is Abandoned Armor. If an Adamantine Dragon is reduced to less than half its hit points, it loses its resistance, but gains a +10 circumstance bonus to all its speeds. And it already has a fly speed of 90 feet with the armor. So yeah, Adamantine Dragons can get very fast. The only reaction that Adamantine Dragons have is the Resilient Form reaction. If an Adamantine Dragon is critically hit with an unarmed strike or weapon attack, it can use a reaction to roll a DC 17 flat check. If it succeeds, that critical hit becomes a normal hit. This means that the Adamantine Dragon can negate critical hits every once in a while, which is kind of a big deal. Now, the Adamantine Dragon has 4 physical attacks: jaws, claws, tail, and it can throw rocks at you. While the young Adamantine Dragon has the grab ability on its jaws, meaning it can grab you when it hits with its jaws by spending an action, the adult and ancient Adamantine Dragons have the improved grab ability, meaning they can attempt to grab you as a free action when they hit with their jaws. All Adamantine Dragons have the knockdown ability if they hit you with their claws, meaning they can put you on the ground if they hit with their claws. Just remember that these dragons can bite you from reach, but they cannot claw you from reach. Meaning if they want to put you on the ground, they have to be right next to you. And of course, like most claws, these dragon's claws do have the agile trait, meaning less of a multiple attack penalty if they use those. The tail also has reach, but no other abilities. Also, as I said before, these dragons can throw rocks at you, and this ranged rock attack does have the brutal traits, which means the dragon can use its strength modifier to hit rather than its dexterity. Also, these ranged strikes have a range increment of 90 feet. Keep in mind that all the numbers I've given so far are for the young version of this dragon. These numbers increase if we're talking about the adult and ancient versions of this dragon. Adamantine dragons also have a few special attacks. For example, all their melee strikes count as adamantine, making it very hard for the party to resist those attacks. And of course, like all dragons, adamantine dragons do get a breath weapon. This dragon's breath weapon deals bludgeoning damage as it is a cone of rocks. And of course, like most breath weapons, it does have a cooldown. Once the dragon uses it, it can't use it again for 1d4 round. And although this dragon isn't trained in stealth, it can very much ambush the party, thanks to its 30-foot burrow speed and the burrowing pounce ability. If the dragon is underground, it can burrow, leap out, land anywhere within 25 feet of where it leapt out, and make a melee strike against a creature within reach of where it lands. If this strike is a critical hit, it also knocks the target prone, regardless of which attack it actually uses, which you can use any of them on this attack. And thanks to draconic momentum, every time it critically hits, it also recharges its breath weapon. The Adamantine Dragon also has the Draconic Frenzy ability, allowing it to hit with 2 claws and a tail for 2 actions. It can make these attacks in any order, but its multiple attack penalty still applies as normal. Okay, we've got 2 more abilities to cover, starting with Rock Tunneler. An Adamantine Dragon can tunnel through solid rock at a speed of 20 feet. Also, when the Adamantine Dragon tunnels, it can choose to leave a tunnel behind if it desires, but it usually doesn't. And finally, Adamantine Dragons have the Swallow Whole ability, meaning yes, they can eat you. While the young and adult Adamantine Dragons need to spend an action to do this, the ancient Adamantine Dragon can do it as a reaction whenever they grab someone. And remember, both the adult and the ancient dragon can grab people as a free action whenever they hit with their jaws. Unfortunately, the ancient Adamantine Dragon is a level 18 creature, so some parties might not ever run into one. But that'll be a real challenge for them if they do get high enough to actually face an ancient one. And finally, it is important to look at skills. Most of the time, you're going to run into these types of dragons in combat, especially as adversaries. So the most important skills for this type of dragon in combat are acrobatics, because it may need to maneuver in flight. Athletics, obviously, because of the improved grab and knockdown abilities. Intimidation, because it does have a good intimidation check, so it can frighten you even if you save against its frightful presence. And it does have a good survival check, so it can track you. It also does have a decent nature check, so if you run into it outside of combat, it can roll nature to find out about natural things. In addition, it does have mining lore, meaning it knows about mines. But you're not going to need those last 2 anywhere near as much as the others. But these may come up if you can get one of these dragons as an ally, which can happen 100%. And of course, there are rules to make these types of dragons spellcaster. If you want me to cover that, though, let me know in the comments. I think after going through this dragon, I've covered pretty much all the tips I have for GMs when it comes to running this monster. So let's talk about some tips that you can use to beat this monster. First thing is, this monster has a low reflex save, meaning if you are a melee attacker, it's a good idea to trip this monster. If you're a spellcaster, spells that require reflex saves, such as Fireball, are definitely something to use against this creature. However, primal casters are going to have a harder time against this creature because of that +2 against primal effects. So primal casters may want to use spell attack roll spells rather than saving throw spells against this creature, which of course melee attackers can help with tripping this creature, as that makes them off guard to everyone, which gives primal casters an easier time hitting it. But physical attackers are going to have a major problem with this creature, at least until you can get it down to half hit points, as it's got big resistance to physical damage. And adamantine weapons are not something you're going to have access to until around the time you're able to face the ancient version of this dragon. Because not only does this dragon have significant physical damage reduction, but it also has a significant attack bonus. Meaning it might be better for melee attackers to use the skirmish tactic. You know, move up, attack it, or trip it, and then move back. As no versions of this dragon have reactive strike. It also might be a good idea to slow this dragon down, such as by stunning it or by inflicting the slowed condition on it. That in combination with tripping the dragon could be incredibly useful. Although this dragon has really good fortitude saves, so the slow spell may not be your best choice. But there are plenty of other spells that inflict the slowed condition. But even if you do all that, this dragon does have ranged attacks. It has a breath weapon, and it can throw rocks at you, which is why frightening or sickening it is a good option. Its will save isn't its lowest save, but it's not its highest save either. So either one of those could be an attractive option. And remember that this dragon can come up from the ground too. So you'll need to be wary if you're in a cavernous area and you're a high enough level to face at least a level 9 creature, as this thing could pop up from underground at any time, especially since it can burrow through solid stone. And don't forget that this thing is a dragon and can fly, which means you might have to use ranged attacks against it, even if you're more geared toward melee. And that's all the tips I have for GMs and players when it comes to this monster. Be sure to let me know in the comments what monster you guys want me to cover next. If you guys don't give me one, then I'm just going to continue with the dragons. But don't forget that you guys can get my videos a day early if you become a member of this channel. But if you guys are more interested in playing a monster in a campaign, you can check out this video here. Thank you guys so much for watching, and remember, teamwork is vital. It helps us solve problems.